Hello peoples, I haven't made a Joys of Mac video for a very long time and I thought I'd make one today. And the reason why I'm making it is very simple actually. It's because here on YouTube I discovered a channel called OSFirsttimer, all one word, and it's a double T in the middle, as in first timer, who is a kid who gets his mum to try out lots of operating systems. It got me thinking about operating systems and also my love of all things Mac, really. And so I thought I would come on. I rather expect that a lot of people will have got Macs for Christmas or be considering getting themselves one. Yeah, so what I'll do in this video is kind of like talk about my computer history, my frustrations with all things Windows, and show you around the Mac desktop and some of my favourite bits of how Mac OS works. Partly because I really want to do justice to it. It's all very well watching someone's mum who's a bit computer illiterate struggling with an operating system, but I wanted to kind of like show some of its really good features as well, and kind of like do it justice. I'm not saying that the Mac system is wholly perfect, because it clearly isn't, and it will become apparent as I sort of take you around the desktop a bit later on. I'm not one of those irritating fanboys for whom like nothing Mac ever did was, you know, absolutely perfect, because it's not. Okay, so my frustrations with Windows, my computer history kind of began in 1996. Well, in terms of modern computing, I got a ZX81 as a child, but I quickly outgrew it and became a bit disillusioned, really. But in the mid-90s, I kind of wanted a computer to help with work. That was my good excuse for getting one. And we got a Gateway 2000 Windows 95 PC. In those days, my computer was relatively high spec. It was a Pentium 75, which was slightly low on the processing speed, but who cares? It didn't have any level 2 cache, which slightly irked me at the time, but to be honest, I don't really think it made that much difference. It's a Pentium 75, then it had 16 megabytes of RAM, which in those days, most computers were shipping with 8 megabytes of RAM. Notice I'm saying megabytes, they were megabytes, not gigabytes, the way that we talk about them today. 16 megabytes in 1996 was extremely powerful. And it had 1.2 gigabytes of hard disk space, and most sort of average Commodore Garden systems in those days were shipping with about 800 megabytes of hard disk space, 8 megabytes of RAM, and I think 100 megahertz processors, which were soon upgraded to 133s. In fact, I was pretty aghast really at how quickly the Pentium 75 became off market. I did upgrade that computer quite a few times. Yeah, so I didn't get the internet until I bought an external dial-up modem, because all internet service for sort of Commodore Garden people such as myself was dial-up, and I signed up with AOL, and you know, and then from then on my life changed. Now here I need to stop slightly to kind of like give you a kind of resume of the computer user that I very quickly became, and really and truthfully still am nowadays. My computer is mainly used, or at the time it was mainly used for a little bit of schoolwork, but mainly music, really. I quickly worked out, in fact, even before I got the internet, I think, I quickly sort of became interested, as it were, in music sequencers. And in those days, like the cheapest ones were MIDI only sequencers. The first one I got was one called Tracks, but then I upgraded that to Cakewalk Home Studio, which became in later years Sonar Home Studio, and I stuck with Cakewalk and Sonar for a very, very long time, probably about 11 years, something like that. So yeah, it's that was really my use for it. Now, Cakewalk was coupled. You needed something to input it into, so I had a keyboard. My keyboards sort of progressed from something that was verging on a toy to a rather nice Roland workstation called the E500. And I added to that some special effects units, cheap ones, second-hand ones. Yes, I was very happy. I had thousands of boxes of tricks and things like that. And my computer, my Windows PC, coped with it very well. And I was sort of happy with that sort of thing, all right? But other areas of Windows, I wasn't too happy with, okay? So going back to sort of the point where I digressed from, it was the internet, really, that, yes, you know, I really enjoyed the internet, and you know, when I first got it, I was like, you know, oh, I don't know, a kid in a sweet shop or something, you know, just on it all the time, kind of thing. It wasn't as, you know, all embracing as today's internet. There's no YouTubes or Facebooks or anything like that. And nowadays I Facebook to death, you know, get myself, you know, spending far too many hours in front of social networking sites and things. I'm not a gamer at all, because I can't play them, to be honest. I'm just no good at them. So yeah, but then I kind of went through a stage, you know, especially as, you know, my music, you know, because I write songs. I don't, you know, I don't sell them or anything like that. They're not, you know, particularly amazing songs, but they're what I do and they're what I like. And, you know, it's an outlet for me, really. And, you know, that became so kind of, you know, I just couldn't bear the thought of anything happening to them. And, you know, in the computing world and the internet world, as it seemed, you know, you could no sooner go onto the internet than some virus would come down and, you know, zap everything to high heaven. You know, that was the kind of, you know, nowadays you know, a lot of people would dare to disagree, but in those days, you know, people were kind of worried about viruses that were going to eat up your whole hard disk space and leave you with absolutely nothing. You know, there's no such thing as an external hard disk, at least not for mere mortals like me. You know, back in the late 90s and early noughties. Well, early noughties, yeah, but not the late 90s when I sort of started out. And so I kind of took my computer off the internet entirely, and you know, we had another sort of secondary older computer system that you know, wasn't, you know, quite as good, as it were, but we used it for the internet, and my frustrations just got ever more apparent. We'd always subscribed to AOL, and AOL in, you know, back in the day, they were actually, you know, in England at any rate, they're actually very good. Again, you could phone up and speak to someone who understood your problem and would actually sort you out. And you know, nowadays you phone a technical support thing, apart from Apple, of course, actually, because Apple are usually very good. Yeah, you'd phone a technical support thing, and all they would try and do was try and foist off the problem to somebody else, and you know, not let you even talk to them if you didn't have a completely irrelevant password or something like that. And you know, it was just so I'd go onto these browsers. AOL's browser let a whole load of junk through, and it kind of really disillusioned me, really. A whole load of junk mail. You go onto one sort of perfectly legitimate site. I used to contribute a lot to forums as well. And you go onto a forum or something, and then suddenly something would jump in, some page would open up, asking you to play poker or do other things that were slightly even less savoury than that, you know, and you know, you just get a whole load of, you know, very, very dodgy looking sites that would come and jump up and sort of spoil your experience, really. My email was just filling up with hundreds of junk messages a day, and you know, junking AOL's browser and using Internet Explorer was really no better, because Internet Explorer just constantly asked for, you know, it was like having a sort of a stormtrooper on duty every time you went on the internet. Do you want to? Are you sure? This contains this. This contains that. Do you want to proceed? Every 5 minutes. And if you went and tried to configure Internet Explorer to try and sort of reduce these annoyances, A, you would be told that you weren't being quite as secure as you should be, and did you really want to? And B, the options menus. I don't know what Internet Explorer is like nowadays. I suspect it's rather similar, but the menus were just so full of all kinds of unfathomable options that you know, you just couldn't see the wood for the trees and find out, you know, exactly what it was that you wanted to configure. And you know, it really wasn't sort of amazing. The email client, Outlook Express, as it was at the time, that wasn't too bad. But again, you know, it's still, you know, trying to sort of put your email account into it, you know, required a whole load of numbers and figures and POPs and LDAPs and or IMAPs or whatever it is that they're called. I don't understand all these abbreviations, and I don't really want to. I shouldn't have to understand all those kind of abbreviations. You know, as well as that, you know, this big sort of internet frustration that I felt, you know, when using a Windows PC. As well as that, it seemed that just about every device that you bought for your machine, whether it was a camera driver or a printer driver or an MP3 driver, particularly in MP3 drivers, all seemed to want to install onto your computer umpteen sort of applications that you didn't really need, because, you know, Windows, you know, it's, you know, to be fair, it's actually quite efficient. It's you know, it's not perfect, and it has a lot of things that are wrong with it, but it also has a lot of good things about it. And one of the things that it has about it is that it has most of the things that you actually need to sort of you know, have a relatively fulfilling computer life. You know, if you want to, for example, you know, play music on your computer, you know, right from sort of day one, it's had music players built in it that can actually do that. You know, and you know, so, you know, like my first MP3 player was a Creative Zen something or other, and I liked it. It was good, little sort of monochrome thing, as it were. I think it was like the equivalent of an iPod Mini or something, but a bit cheaper, and running WMA files and stuff like that. And so you'd put onto this thing your drivers, okay? You go into Windows Media Player. Now, Windows Media Player wasn't too bad once you sussed it out. I'm talking about Windows Media Player 10 years, so we're sort of going back to the quite early noughties here now. And it was fine, yeah, rip a CD in, as it were, and it would store it as an album, and somehow or other you would get the artwork as well. And it was quite nice. However, if you wanted to make a playlist, for example, then putting in you know, a playlist into Windows Media Player and then dragging in your favourite songs, that was fine, except that then you would sync it up with your creative MP3 player or whatever it was that you used, and suddenly you would find that it hadn't synchronized the playlist that you wanted it to synchronize. And the only way to do that was to install Creative's own software, which meant that every time, you know, I would still have this library of songs in Media Player. And there is a point to this, by the way. There's a point to what I'm saying here, because it'll all become apparent when you see the, you know, the next part of the video. But anyway, so you'd have this library of songs in Media Player. Then you'd have to go into this Creative software to make your playlist, and somehow or other the two would kind of work together, and when you synced them up, you would actually get, you know, your albums plus your playlists. Okay, now Windows Media Player, because, you know, I'm a big music person. Look behind me, you know, hundreds of CDs, hundreds of records. You know, there's CDs there, there's records over there, you know, and it's what I like. Okay, so so yeah, I actually thought, you know, one day, and this is what we're still on dial-up at the time, but, you know, I came across in, you know, just exploring Windows Media Player, looking, and I suddenly found an online store, and that online store was called MSN Music UK or something like that. Very, you know, very similar to that. Okay, so you go on this thing and you would download these files. Now, in those days, you know, to download half a dozen files via dial-up took all day, and these were 128 kilobytes per second, very, very compressed WMA files. Nothing like actually the quality of a CD. But anyway, there I go, and I think, oh, this is brilliant. You know, I'm downloading songs here. You know, gosh, I'm getting with it. I'm, you know, because even then I was getting old, and you know, it was fabulous. I loved it, you know. And once we got broadband, you know, there was absolutely nothing stopping me from sort of going on and, you know, buying my music, you know, especially if it was, you know, the odd track here and there. I'd still try and buy my albums on CD or vinyl or whatever it was. But, you know, and I didn't spend vast amounts of money, but, you know, I still spent money on this thing. And then one day, Microsoft announced something called the Zune, which was supposed to be their take on the iPod, and was supposed to be, you know, the thing that would kill the iPod, supposedly. And I don't think anyone's got a Zune nowadays. If you have, then leave me a comment. But this thing meant the closure of MSN Music, first of all the American version and then the English version. And what's more, suddenly all the files that I had, you know, although I'd, you know, burnt them onto CDs and stuff, so I, you know, somewhere or other I've still got all the, or a fair number of the songs that I downloaded, but they suddenly stopped working. They all had this sort of DRM, digital protection, on them and everything, but as soon as that store closed down, suddenly these things stopped working, and that just sort of really irked me. Okay, so what I did was bought an iPod. And when I bought an iPod, you know, the first thing I did, it was an iPod Classic, or what is now known as the iPod Classic. It wasn't, it was just basically an iPod in those days. It sounded quite nice, at least as nice as my Creative Zen player, which was good. okay-ish, nice with a decent pair of headphones. You know, if you can find one and get one working on, you know, some music store or whatever, then do, because, you know, especially if you've got a Windows system, they're quite good. So anyway, I had this iPod, and with that, I had to use iTunes as well. And you know, got myself a library together, and I quite enjoyed it, and found the whole iTunes experience actually a very good one. You know, iTunes in those days wasn't the huge bloated application that it is nowadays, although they've tried to make it a bit easier to use. You just bought music from there, basically. There are no movies or books or whatever. You know, that's all come since. And I actually really liked it, okay? And then sort of exploring Apple's website further, I suddenly found that there was a Windows version of their internet browser. At the time it was Safari 2, I think, or maybe possibly 3. I think it was Safari 2 though, that you could download for Windows, okay? Now, you know, back in the day, you know, Windows have been forced to clean up their act a little bit, but they kind of like, you know, led everyone to believe that really and truthfully, you know, the native browser in Windows being Internet Explorer, if you ever tried to uninstall Windows Explorer, or at least, you know, not use it, you know, put it on cold storage somewhere, that the whole world would end. And that suddenly turned out not to be true. I installed Safari. It worked. It worked straight from the first download. Every single website that I wanted to go onto at that time, I had absolutely no problems with it whatsoever. No silly little menu items coming up. No hugely long choices of options or security, this or that or the next thing. You know, yes, it being Windows, you had to have a firewall and an antivirus thing, and you know, pay, you know, every year for subscriptions, £30 or £40 a year. And yeah, it was absolutely fabulous. And then I started to hanker after a Mac, and you know, there was me with, you know, again, the other myth, you know, Macs are fine if you want to do music and graphics. Well, actually, you know, I take photographs, I write songs, I play music and that sort of thing. That's my hobbies, you know. And I thought, well, that is perfect for me then. You know, it must be better than all this. So for my birthday, in 2007, I got a black MacBook on HP, as it were, from you know, one of our sort of electrical shops, rhyming with I don't know, PC World. I think I got it from. Yeah, but you know, probably possibly not the best place to buy it from. But there it was. It was near me. I could go and see it. I could touch it and everything, and you know, I got this little 13-inch laptop, and suddenly, you know, put my monitors and tower boxes and whatever else into, you know, slightly cold storage, as it were, and got on a Mac, and I turned it on, and would you believe it? It worked straight away, out of the box, running OS X Tiger, which is 10.4. Which I think was possibly, you know, I think it must count as one of the strongest of the Mac OS releases, the Mac OS X releases. And, you know, at first I used it like a computer user, like a PC user would be doing, drilling down through files and stuff like that. But I really liked it. And within sort of, I suppose, a couple of months, I think, because I had this idea about, because I'd been exploring a Beatles website about Beatles anomalies, i.e. little slight misfortunes and cracks and popples and edits and things like that appeared on Beatles records. And I thought, well, you know, there must be some of those on ABBA songs too. So I started listening out for those. Okay, this is sort of all coinciding with the time, where I was going through my PC to Mac transition, and I thought, blimey, there's actually, because when I first turned this thing on, the first thing it asked me to do was put a photograph of myself, and I thought, oh my god, I haven't even connected the scanner yet. And suddenly this window opened up, and there was this eyesight camera, and it took a photograph of me. Right from then on, so I thought, if this thing can take videos, and if I've got a digital camera as well that can also take videos, then actually I can make videos myself. Okay, it can't be all that difficult. I would never have even, entertained the dream in a million years. It would have been a pipe dream to me to do that on Windows XP or Windows 98. But suddenly, opening this MacBook, and it just seemed so easy. So I opened up iMovie, which was then on 2006 HD, and the first videos, they play rather shakily now on YouTube. I don't know what they've done, but they've changed something. They never used to shake and rattle and roll around, but there they are on YouTube. I made the whole of the Abergold anomalies thing, just on my little MacBook with a digital camera, and I don't really do anything different today. I just sit in front of the Mac and I make videos, and that outlet for my my YouTube channel. It's not the most famous YouTube channel on earth, but it's got a nice little following, and there it is, and it's all because I made the change. I took a deep breath, made the change from PC to Windows. Okay, and half of me thought, well, it's going to be just as frustrating as I found, certain aspects of Windows, i.e. the internet and software and dodgy people on the internet, trying to scam you out of your money and everything. But actually, no, it isn't. It's a far more secure world. Is Apple, and with that, I'm going to stop ranting. Because I must have been about 35 minutes, and just take you on a quick whistle-stop tour around macOS 10. It's 10.9 now, 10.9 Mavericks. Okay, yes, you'll see what it's like. So, ta-ta for now, and I'll see you in a second. Okay, so here I am on my macOS 10.9. Desktop here. I'm going to try and keep this really to the kind of things that I noticed the minute that I switched from PC to Mac. Okay, so as I said earlier, that was 10.4 Tiger from Windows XP. Okay, and previously 95 and 98, of course. When I switched on, really the sort of first thing I noticed was this Finder window in the middle of the screen. It'll take a little while to explain what the Finder is, and what it's capable of and what it does, and then I'll go round the rest of the desktop explaining various things. Okay, and I'll try and pick up on some of the things I said in my rather lengthy intro. Okay, so yeah, I mean, as I said, macOS 10.4 was streaks ahead of Windows XP. So what I'm going to show you here might appear to be quite old hat now, but but in Windows these things didn't appear until Vista and Windows 7. So it did appear that Apple were right when they put up posters in 2004 saying Microsoft, get your photocopiers out, because it did appear like they nicked things. I'm not going to accuse them of nicking things because Apple nicked things as well, and it's all a bit of spaghetti, really. Who did what and who got what idea from where. Okay, so don't sort of quote me on that one. I will try and include some of the max bad points as well. This is only about take 5 of this bit of the video, and you know, the last complete take I did of it, as it were, kind of I got sidetracked by all the good bits and forgot to include some of the negatives, so I'll try and do that this time. All right, so anyway, we're on the Finder. All right, now along the top bar here, okay, you have browser buttons just like the internet. Those weren't in 2004, okay, but these were. Okay, this is your kind of view of the files on your screen. Okay, and these can be set differently depending on what kind of documents you've got in your folder. For example, like in this one and this one, I've got it set to, oh, I had that set to thumbnails. I want it set to thumbnails there, but you just saw that you can have it as a list, you can have it as an Explorer window, and from 10.5 onwards, which was Leopard, the one after Tiger, you had this cover view that's a bit like the cover flow view on the iPod, and also in iTunes as well. And yeah, so what you can do is you can choose one of these things, you can hit spacebar. Okay, and it will preview that document. It should preview that document. It's being a bit slow, okay, but there you go. Escape that. At the top, it has a button to open it with its native application or default application. So, for example, if it was a Word document, it would say open with Microsoft Word. This is opening with Preview, which is Apple's kind of built-in version of Adobe Acrobat. Okay, it reads PDFs, and so you don't need to download Adobe Acrobat because it's already there. And what's more, in just about any text or desktop publishing application, you can share your images or your work to this PDF file thing, so that, you know, whereas, you know, in the olden days, I'm not sure what the state is now, but in the olden days, Adobe let you download the reader for free, but if you wanted to create a PDF document, you had to pay for the full thing. Well, here it's all built in natively into the OS. Okay, it's a core thing that the whole thing was built on. Okay, all right, I'll get rid of her. She's annoying me. All right, so those are the different kind of views. Along here, there's a Dropbox button for sharing files on the cloud, which again wasn't in 10.4, but you've got actions here, which pretty much duplicate what's going on down here. Okay, share, you can edit your tags there as well, and I'll talk about that in a secondo. All right, along the side here, okay, the Finder is like a mashed up combination of my computer and my documents. Okay, lots of these things here relate to my documents. Okay, some of these things are put on by default. All these pretty icons, for example, this is your home directory that contains a lot of these things here, like your applications and your movies and your documents and so on. Also your desktop. But down here, you can customize this sidebar to you know, exactly however you like. Okay. So, for example, if I'm going into other documents here and I want this folder to be readily accessible without having to drill down into various different folders or whatever. I mean, I know this is a bit trite really, because it's you know, it's quite near the top anyway, but if you had to drill down through files or whatever, then you could just put it wherever you wanted it. I like to put them alphabetically, but you could just put that where you wanted it on the sidebar there, okay, and then that would always be there for you. All right, now this little search bar here, which has been present in the Mac OS since at least 10.2. That's a good 4 years before I bought my Mac and 2 years before Tiger came out, i.e. about 2002. You can actually do sort of smart searches. So for example, if I just wanted any ABBA photographs, all I need to do is put in here search for ABBA, okay, and along come the ABBA photos, the ABBA documents that are there, okay, and then if I click on here, this add button here, okay, kind is image, okay, and there it's taken me to all the images. Now if the image that I happen to want wasn't there, okay, rather than searching the folder ABBA documents, I could choose this Mac instead, and then it'll go through my whole Mac, okay, and it'll bring up some more photos, okay. There's one extra there. I haven't got enough photos of ABBA on my Mac. Perhaps that's a major shortcoming, but there you go. So that's one thing you can do with that search bar. Okay, you can make smart searches. Okay, you can add, for example, here, so that you can put in all kinds of criteria. Okay, what I've done here, down here in the dock, and I'll talk about this a little bit more a bit later, but in the dock on this side, which is the side that holds your files and folders, I've created a folder here that will contain any document, any text document that I have made within the last 7 days. Okay, at the moment it's only got one in it, which is my 2013 gift tags, but I'll show you a little bit more about how that will dynamically update, okay, so that tomorrow's contents will be different from today's, okay. So that's the sort of my documents area of the Finder kind of wrapped up or sort of briefly explained. You can do some tags, okay. Here for my last video I demonstrated how to tag documents in a colour, so you can go through a folder and then assign one of these colours to different types. Okay, I found a few documents that related to vinyl records that were on my system. Okay, so if I click on those, okay, I've tagged them blue, okay, and renamed those tags. That's very simple. Just double tap on the magic trackpad, or if you've got a mouse you can right click and just choose rename, okay, and then that will rename your tag to something more useful. Okay, so these are documents in my various folders that all pertain to vinyl. Okay, so that I could be up here somewhere, you know, searching through here, and then suddenly you know, think, oh, I wonder what I've got about vinyl, and then just come down here and click, and there they are. Okay, the my computer aspect is this devices bit here, and you've also got your internet kind of accessy sort of thing here. Okay, and I don't really want it to do that, so I'm going to get rid of that because it's already connected to the internet. Okay, these are that's the Macintosh HD is the default name for the internal hard drive. Think of it as drive C on most Windows PCs. Okay, but you can rename that to anything you like, hence the names that I've given to my external drives. Okay, this is the time machine, which is a partition on my on one of my external drives. You make it a little bit bigger, at least half the size again of your internal drive. Okay, and then you can back up to Time Machine, and Time Machine will make incremental backups of your system automatically on the fly. You can go into it. I don't want to do it at the moment because it might jigger up my screen recording, but you can go into it and you can then rescue anything that you might have deleted and emptied the trash for, you know, perhaps half an hour ago or last week or something like that. You know, you might realise that you've accidentally deleted something and you might want to try it and get it back. Okay, so there's your finder for you, all right? Let's get rid of it for a second and just sort of start up here. Now this menu bar is a dynamic menu bar. It's always there, but it updates depending on which application you're in, okay? So that, for example, if I click on Pages, which I will do now, for example, it will now change to Pages, all right? And all of these options here for menus will now relate to Pages. Okay, Pages is Apple's sort of version of Microsoft Word. Okay, it's actually free to buy. Okay, but it used to come as part of a suite called iWork, which contained a version of Excel called Numbers and a version of PowerPoint called Keynote, which now you can sort of obtain separately from the Mac store. And if you've got Maverick, it's free. Okay, so I'm not going to get rid of that because I'm coming back to that in a second. But yeah, okay, I'll just say done for now to that. All right, so along here then you have Pages. This Apple button is always there. It's not quite the equivalent of the Start menu button in Windows, because that's where you can access your applications and things as well. Your applications here are access to your Finder or through other places, as you'll see. It will quickly become apparent. Okay, this is more for other housekeeping. So you have an About This Mac page, which I'll show you in a second. You've got software update. Nowadays, lots of things now tend to update on the fly, but in the olden days, yes, you had automatic updates, but it would be an automatic alert for an update that would tell you, you know, such and such is available for your computer. Would you like to download it now or later? Kind of thing. Okay, a link to the App Store, which wasn't it obviously in 10.4. System Preferences, which is your control panel. Okay, control panel for some reason takes a little while to come up. Well, I don't mean control panel, I mean System Preferences. There it is. Okay, it's also a bit slower because I'm using a screen recording thing as well. Okay, but there you go, and that will again update depending on the kind of applications you've got in there. For example, Flip for Mac is a little sort of add-on that you can get, for example. So get rid of that. Okay, you have Force Quit here. Recent items, Force Quit. Force Quit is not as useful as Control Alt Delete in Windows, but it is the equivalent of it. Okay, I say useful. Control Alt Delete in Windows is absolutely hopeless. It usually brings up a task menu. You usually can't understand half of the tasks that are going on there because they're background things that you should never see anyway. But you might find the application that's frozen or caused you a problem. Okay, in Mac OS they hardly ever freeze. But this does have one useful sort of application, which I'll tell you in a second. But yeah, you know, in Windows, you then get end now, and Mail is trying to tell me something, go away. end now, end now, end now, and you just want to throw the computer out the window and hope you can put it out of its misery, okay? And you know, it then tends to hang and freeze the whole system, and you know, you've got to restart if you possibly can. And you know, with Windows, you can't really restart through just pressing the power off button. You can in the Mac. It's not necessarily advised, but it's not a bad thing. And yes, this is so much simpler. Okay, its shortcut is not Control Alt Delete. It's Command Alt and Escape. But when you do it, look what you get. These are all the applications that are open currently on my Mac, and they're all just, you know, buzzing away in the background, not slowing it down at all, because you know, Mac OS X was designed from the outset to have preemptive multitasking, so that open applications do not hog all your system resources the way that they did in Windows. They're standalone applications. They don't have shared DLLs, which cause problems as well, which could, you know, cause your whole system to hang up. But look, there you go. Any of these, that if you want to get rid of them because for some reason they've frozen or whatever, then you just choose one, choose force quit, and it goes. There's a reason why I'm choosing Mail, and that's because of a bug that's in Mail, which on certain systems, on mine, it hasn't done it so much lately. My fingers are crossed here, but when you want to log out or shut down, which is also in the Apple menu, quite often Mail would be doing something and would stop the whole thing from shutting down, and you'd have to wait for a minute or two, and then you would get a message. It would be an informative message. Mail, you know, the app, log out, refuse because Mail has not quit, which, you know, is telling you something, unlike Windows messages, but still it's irritating nonetheless. And so the only thing to do was to actually force quit Mail before you shut down. Okay, as I say, in Maverick that hasn't done that, and it never used to do it in Tiger, it has to be said. I think it was some bug or other that was introduced a bit later on. I think in Lion, which was 10.7, that really, you know, that it really sort of reared its ugly head. Okay, and lots of Apple systems do that. It's a well-known thing. Okay, I think they may have finally sussed it. I hope they've sussed it. Anyway, shut up about that. Okay, so that's the Apple menu. Okay, I've talked about the Finder menu and how this menu changes. Along here, this is the like the system tools thing. Okay, it's very similar in a way to the little system tray that you have down here in Windows. Okay, on the right hand side of the taskbar. All right, except that as I spoke about in the introduction here, that, you know, quite often when you're installing drivers or applications to make a piece of to make a device work, or, you know, even just a normal application or whatever, you get loads of unwelcome little icons that clutter up this this system tools thing, and they all want to start when Windows is starting. They slow the whole thing down, especially as well if you've got an antivirus program, because that also needs to boot up. And for Mac, you know, it just has to be said, you know, quick digression here. You do not need to buy a firewall. Windows has got a firewall in its system preferences. Mac OS has got a firewall in its system preferences tray. So just switch it on the minute that you buy your computer, and it will work beautifully. Okay, viruses aren't as prolific as they are for Windows. And Unix is a very strong operating system anyway, and can resist them. Okay, and the way that you install software as well, you actually have to type in a password when you install software, your administrator password, so that you know, if a virus does want to try and install itself on your system, then you will have at least half a chance of spotting it and saying no. but you know, as I say, you know, that's extremely rare. Okay, for Mac, it's not unknown, but it's extremely rare to get a virus. Okay. All right, so these are your system applications here. That's yeah, and these things here, most of them you can actually, you know, choose. For example, this one will go away the minute that I close down my screen recording thing, because that's the stop button here. Okay, this is Dropbox, which is my iCloud sort of, well, my cloud storage. Okay, that one is I don't know. This one is AppleScript. Okay, AppleScript is a language that you can use to automate a lot of macOS sort of functions, but it's not so useful nowadays, because you know, just about anything that you can think of doing, you know, I'll be darned if, you know, there isn't a more elegant way of doing it already in the GUI without having to write some program language for it. Okay, that's Time Machine, as I said. This is your volume control. An interesting thing that I'll do here is I'll hold down Alt when I press that. Then I've got an option to go straight to my sound preferences there. Okay, if I don't hold down Alt, I just get a single volume control here. Okay, even the sound preferences thing here is much less complicated than Windows full sound preferences, which gives you like a sort of mixing desky thing with you know, all kinds of unfathomable things for the normal user, like spadiffs and funny things like that, which you know, most people don't understand. Okay, and you know, the Mac interface is just far simpler. Okay, so yeah, there's your Bluetooth, that's your wireless connection. Okay, wireless, as I said before, wireless was, you know, more or less instantaneous. The minute that I went and tried to, you know, connect it up to the internet, it found it straight away. All I had to do was type in my password and away I went. Okay, and also it's far more reliable. We had a big house at the time, and we had Windows computers that we were perhaps in the room next door to where the modem was, and even so, they still would, you know, keep losing their wireless signal. You know, I could take the MacBook around the house anywhere, be in the same places where the Windows computers that weren't getting the Wi-Fi signal were, and have full signal. Okay, it's extremely robust. Okay, you've got your date, your time, that's my name. This thing here is called Spotlight. Now this is going back to the search tools. Okay, the search tools in previous versions to 10.4 were quite, as I say, you know, that they were good. Okay, because you could do you know, all those you know, smart searches and sorts of things from within applications. Okay, even from something within Mail. I'm not going to show you within Mail because it's got personal stuff in it, but but Mail and address book and that sort of thing, you could, you know, type in a query into any of those search boxes, and boom, you could get your results very, very quickly. Okay, but that's kind of along the same kind of lines as a Windows search, although the Windows search in XP was more cumbersome. You had to, first of all, you had to find out where the Windows search was, which meant digging through a menu or something, and then you had to enter information about the document that you might have lost. Okay, was it a text document? Was it a photograph? Can you remember whether it was the last month or the last week or whatever? And you know, other things about it. And then you would get this cute little doggy that would start digging away, and it might find what you were after. Okay, you can imagine on a large network that would take a huge amount of time. Okay, Spotlight here is for things that you know, you don't even have to have lost them. It's just a really quick way of finding what you want. Okay, a similar thing appeared in Vista, but again, you see, as I say, that was, you know, a good 2 years after it had been premiered on macOS Tiger. Okay, so you can click that, or you can just press Command and Spacebar. They're right next to each other on the keyboard. Okay, and Spotlight comes up, okay, you just start typing a query, what you want, okay? So for example, if I type in here Gary Newman, okay, up pops things about Gary Newman that I might want to look at, okay? If I type in here perhaps the name of a Gary Newman song, Big Noise, look, Big N, Big Yellow Taxi, Big N, Oi, okay, and there is Big Noise Transmission by Gary Newman, okay. That was possibly a bit slower than you would normally do it in real life, and it usually, you know, it takes far longer to explain than to actually do, okay. It's very useful for finding things like contacts. For example, if I put in here Cupertino, down here in my contacts, I've got Apple Computer Inc, and I can go ahead, and if I click on that, that will take me to Apple's contact card in my address book, okay? Again, if I pop on here and type in 84 divided by 2, I've got a calculation, 42. Okay, so I can use that as a very basic calculator should I need to. Okay, and up comes a web page. Mum tries out Windows Chicago build because OSFirsttimer always tries to get his mum to do a calculation, and he tries to get the answer to be 42 an awful lot. Okay. If, for example, you really, you know, what you want is not on your computer, for example, where are the outer Hebrides, for example, it now really has no clue, okay? So it will take you to, you can search the web or you can search Wikipedia to find out where it is, okay? And it will also give you an opportunity as well to look up a word in a dictionary if it's just a word that you don't know the meaning of, okay? So it's an extremely capable little sort of addition, okay? As I say, it first premiered in Tiger, macOS 10.4, okay? At the end of 2004, it was announced, and by the beginning of 2005, it was released. And that is a good 2 years before Windows Vista and Windows 7 also has similar features, although I'm not quite sure, you know, whether or not they would take you out onto the internet or give you the option to look things up in a dictionary from there, okay? So that's that bar up there. Down here, okay, on this little side of the dock, okay, the shelf here is called the dock, okay. It has a little sort of line there, and the cursor changes to an up and down arrow, okay. And on this side you can store folders, okay. Default ones are downloads and applications. I'm not sure whether that's a default one or not, or one I put there, but okay, up comes my applications, okay. This is my last 7 days document that I spoke about here, okay. Documents in here, okay, movies, music, okay, and you can change how these fan out, okay. For example, at the moment it's on grid, which I like, but you can have it fan out if you so wish. So up pop your music folders, okay. I'm going to change that back to grid because I like it like that, okay. Down here I've minimized iMovie, okay. Watch what happens, okay, and it's even moving to a different desktop there, okay. This is something that's relatively new, appeared in Snow Leopard 10.6, where you can have different applications open on different desktops, okay, and you can see all that, and I'll try and remember to show you how. Watch it minimize, okay. It's also useful, just quickly here, these traffic light buttons here are your sort of exit, minimize, and this one is not really maximize. What it does is it optimizes the size of the window to fit the content. So if I do that now, for example, it's going to do that. Okay, it's going to make it that big for me. Okay, and in doing that again, returns it to the normal size. This will give you full screen, which will cover the menu bar and the dock. Okay, so there it goes, and then it comes back again. You have to press escape like that. It's all a bit slow because of the screensavery, the screen record thing. All right, so that side of the dock's for your folders then. Okay. This side is for your applications. You can have as many or as few of these as you want going on. Okay. They're easy to put in the dock. They're easy to get rid of. Okay. So for instance, okay, if I didn't want PowerPoint to be there, all I have to do is right click, options, remove from dock. Okay, and away it goes in a puff of smoke. You can drag it away, but I'm not too good at that, especially with this screen thingy on. All right, if I want to put it back again, okay, all I have to do is go into my applications, find PowerPoint and drag it in. Okay, so can you remember how to do that? Command, PowerPoint. Okay, all right, now choosing Command, which is CMD on here, okay, and then pressing enter will now open that in its Finder window. I can take that icon and just drag it back to where I want it, like that, okay, and it just appears. Everything else gets out of the way. Okay, this magnification of the dock is an option that you can put on, but you can have this dock as big or as small as you like. And I've known people who have had no applications down here, but have just had their documents there as a very simple way of getting to the files and things that they need, because obviously Spotlight can open documents very, very quickly. Okay, now I'll show you pages, because I'll show you how things save. Okay, all right, so here's pages. I want a new document. Okay, a new blank document here. All right, and I'm going to write, save, and retrieve a text document for you. Okay, so here we go. Okay, this is a text document. Okay, now I will go to File and Save. Okay, there's no Save As here, and you'll see why. Okay, so there is Save. Okay, and I'm just going to call that text. Okay, and I'm going to save it to the desktop. Okay, and I'm on the desktop. That is now saved. You notice how that popped down. I'll just quickly go back into that save document again. I'm not going to actually do anything again, but look. No, that's not going to let me do that because it's already saved. Let's just do a new text document just for a second. Okay, let's do a landscape one so I know what I'm doing here. Okay, File, Save. Okay, down comes this. Now look down here. This is essentially your Finder again. Okay, with all the files and folders that you kept there in the first place. Okay, now that doesn't seem, you know, sort of rocket science to Windows 7 users, but to Windows XP users, as I was when I was transferring, that was a jolly darn miracle, because it just means that you can choose somewhere right from the sidebar and save it. Okay, and these are mine. Okay, now you could kind of configure Windows Service Pack 3 for XP to do that if you knew what you were looking for. And I don't think that at that time it was on many people's radar, but because I'd used a Mac and was using Windows at school, I kind of like dug around and found the option in XP Service Pack 3 to be able to put things on there, but it's nowhere near as quick and intuitive as just dragging something from here over to there and plonking it where you want it to be. Okay, all right, so I will cancel that one, I don't want that. Okay, notice how these buttons grey out if they're behind, if they're in a window behind. Okay, and there, that can go. Okay, I want to do a little bit more work on this. It has words in it. Okay, oh, quickly spell check that. Words in it. Okay, and now I've finished with that, and I'm going to quit pages. Oh dear, I didn't save it. Oh my God, in Windows that would be a disaster, because all those hours of writing and then I forgot to save it and I've lost 6 hours of work. Oh dear. In Pages, here's that text document that I saved a few minutes ago on the desktop. I open it up. In your own time. This has got 12 gigabytes of RAM in it, and look. Up here, it has the word edited in it because I saved it and then I did a little bit of extra editing on it. Okay, and that has saved all my changes. Okay, that is called autosave. That was introduced in Lion in 2010, I believe. It's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing when it works and it's done properly. Okay, and Apple's sort of iWork or pseudo Office suite, it all works perfectly. Okay, that won't happen in Microsoft's Office. Okay, because Microsoft's Office was developed before that. They haven't updated it to include the autosave functions, and even things like Logic Express here or Logic Pro here hasn't got autosave, and that's one of Apple's own applications there. Okay, and it's an absolute crying shame that it hasn't got autosave for that, because you just think, well, hold on, this is just, you know, it's one of those cases. Apple have a habit of, you know, sometimes having a really good idea and then sort of only half doing it. Okay, and really, you know, that is application specific autosave is. Okay, it would have been nice if some genius could have actually worked out how it's not application specific and how it's system wide, and that for every program that requires you to save a document, it's auto saved. Okay, you know, and then you've got the added complication of things like iTunes, for example, which saves in its own way, and iPhoto, if you use it, I don't use iPhoto, but if you use it, then that saves its, you know, its documents in its own place. Aperture, which is what I do use instead of iPhoto, that is another Apple application that also saves its photos in a different way. And you know, yes, they save automatically. You don't have to worry about losing them, but you know, it would be nice if that were all a bit more unified and a bit more sort of tied up. So there's a rant about why, you know, certain parts of, you know, the Mac OS aren't yet perfect, but you know, as a whole, it's an extremely good system. Okay, I'm just gonna quickly mention here, this is Logic Pro. This is where I do all my music recording, and you remember that I spoke about, you know, having these huge dialog boxes open. So that's not what I mean at all. You remember that I spoke about you know, having all these add-on boxes which I bought for, you know, sound effects and everything else like that. When I got Logic, the learning curve from Cakewalk or Sonar, which I used to use, going to Logic, was actually quite steep, because Cakewalk did things in a totally different way, and there was me, you know, trying to sort of, you know, do cakewalky things in Logic. Okay, and I found a free tutorial going on in the App Store in Regent Street in London, where, you know, I actually finally got to grips with how Logic Pro worked. It turns out that I didn't need all those keyboards and boxes and things. Okay, but one very, very cheap, I think under £50 keyboard to act as an input device, plugged in via USB, would then access all of the instruments and tones and sound effects and audio recording as well as MIDI recording, that was all in Logic and all very easy and actually very logical. Okay, and it turns out really that Cakewalk was possibly more illogical captain than Logic itself. Okay, so that was a sort of a happy ending, and I was able to ditch all those boxes, flog them all on eBay. Okay, and I actually then used that to finance replacing my MacBook with an iMac. Okay, and it really has revolutionized my life. One of the criticisms that people will also levy, no, I'll come back to that. I'll just quickly show you Safari because I have to. Okay, Safari is here. Okay, it's opening BT come Google come Yahoo or whatever that is my home page. Okay, let's just click on something here and click on something there. I don't know what I'm clicking on here, but I'm clicking away, and actually I don't want that page at all. I want to go back a bit, so I'm just swiping along with my magic trackpad here, which is a free thing that you can specify instead of a mouse, although the mouse is just as simple, although I can't remember how you do it on the mouse, but swiping with 2 fingers on the magic trackpad or on the laptop pad if you've got a laptop. Okay, that way, that way, that way, that way. Absolutely beautiful. Okay, if we go into Safari preferences, okay, and look how cleanly laid out, privacy, see, and it's really so simple. Okay, these are extensions, a bit like Firefox ones, even your advanced one is actually, that there are no huge sort of tabs and menu after menu after menu the way there was in Internet Explorer. Remember Internet Explorer 6? How can you forget it? It was just unfathomable. Okay, and those are all your options there. Okay, it's just Safari is a beautiful browser. Okay, and you've got this reader thing here which will take out all the content that you really need, get rid of all the other rubbish there so that you can actually focus on your content there. Okay, just a lovely browser. And of course you can have whatever browser you want. Okay, at the time that Tiger was released, no, just before the time that Tiger was released, for a good 5 or 6 years before, Apple were touting Microsoft's Internet Explorer for the Mac. Okay, but they stopped that at Internet Explorer version 5 because Apple developed Safari, and then a little bit of squabbling broke out basically, and Microsoft decided that they weren't going to develop their Internet Explorer for the Mac, and they also decided to make sure that things like Hotmail, I can get Hotmail in my mail client, I'm not going to open it, but it's not as intuitive as just perhaps getting your Google or your AOL account on there, which you basically just type in your username and password and bingo, you're done. You've got to enter in all your funny details and things and long numbers and stuff to try and fudge it to work, and you probably Google it or give up. I've got Hotmail on there, but Lord alone knows how I did it. Okay, so therein kind of is the Mac. Okay, that's really all I've got to say about it. People will say, well, actually, Macs are just so expensive. Yes, they are expensive. I balk at how expensive they are, and God forbid my fingers and toes and everything else across here, but if anything ever went wrong with this, I would be absolutely stuffed and I would not be able to afford another one. Okay, at least not without finding other things I could sell on eBay or something to try and finance one. Okay, but what I will say, okay, for me, okay, I haven't got a lot of money, and I don't have a telly. I use my Mac for streaming any kind of, you know, TV program or whatever that I want to watch direct from the BBC or, you know, Netflix or wherever else that you can watch TV programs from on the internet, okay, including iTunes, okay, and you know, these things are built to last. And also, once you've bought it, you will find that an awful lot of things that you have to pay a lot of money for in Microsoft things, so even their operating systems, they're like 4 or 5 different flavors of them, from Home Premium to, you know, I don't know, basic crap or whatever it happens to be, edition. And you know, they're expensive. Okay, Maverick is free. It's actually free, provided that you have I think you need to have 10.6 Snow Leopard or something, and once you've got that, then Mavericks will upgrade it, upgrade, you know, skip a few operating systems, you know, in the future, and it is free. Okay, this Office system, you know, Pages and Numbers and Keynote and whatnot, is free. Okay, as long as you've got Mavericks. Okay, it never used to be. It was always a lot cheaper. I mean, Snow Leopard, for example, cost $29 or something, which worked out about 20 English pounds. Okay, to upgrade from Leopard, and you know, the iWork suite was always a lot cheaper than Microsoft Office. Okay, and so you know, there are an awful lot of ways. You don't have to buy antivirus programs. Free antivirus programs, I always found on Windows, would always try and find something that was wrong with your system that could cause an alert or whatever, and then prompt you to buy the real thing. Okay, they were never ever as you know, true to their word, basically. And Windows antivirus systems such as McAfee or the other one, Norton or whatever, they required subscriptions which cost a lot of money every year. Okay, which with a Mac you really don't need to pay. There's so much that just comes in the box that you can just sort of enjoy a digital life with iTunes. And you know, here iTunes, you know, talk about, you know, my Microsoft things all self-destructing and not working after, you know, that they closed the store down. But you see, if iTunes ever did that, I think there'd just be a global outcry. Okay, and I've got stuff here that I've put in iTunes, you know, in this same iTunes library. Yes, I've moved the iTunes library around a bit, but in this same iTunes library, I've, you know, stuff I've put in there from, you know, 2002 or something like that, that's still there and still works. And you know, with none of the problems that you know, and compatibility problems and everything else that you got with the Microsoft Store. Okay, so you know, it swings and roundabouts. You pay a lot initially for the hardware, but then from then on, you know, a lot of the stuff is free. Okay, and here endeth the lesson. I do hope that anybody that is, you know, was ever thinking of buying a Mac and watching this video will, you know, just go ahead and buy a Mac. Okay, and yeah, you know, I also hope that at least, you know, I've done the OS a little bit of justice and shown that, yeah, you know, even on the face of it, even just exploring this desktop area, that that you know, it's an extremely powerful operating system. Okay, all right, goodbye.